Thank you, Reverend Tony, and good day, good evening, wherever you happen to be. Thank you, everyone, for coming today and coming to the talk. Here in San Francisco, it also is Pride, so we're celebrating all the diversity in oneness that is really who we are. Our differences are but appearances, right? So around where we live, there's been a lot of celebrations this weekend. We live near Dolores Park, and there's been a lot of activity. It's been sunny out. It's been really a great, great week. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, my talk today is titled An Oddly Assorted Procession of People Reveals Our Divinity. And I was struck by this line. I actually came across it in the workbook, and I kind of played with it a little bit. It's actually from workbook lesson number 10 in the body of the lesson itself. The workbook lesson is my thoughts do not mean anything. And this part is kind of talking about how, if you really want to step back and be reflective, our thoughts kind of come through our minds and we kind of do with them as we please. And we give the meaning that they actually have. But I also wanted to work or talk to you a little bit about this procession and the idea that a word that is also part of procession, which is process today. Um, so I looked up procession, and there was a couple definitions. One of the typical definitions is a number of people or cars moving forward in an orderly manner. So that calls to mind, I think about graduation procession, where the faculty may come in a ceremony and then the students, or perhaps a wedding procession where the participants and the bridal parties and the groom and the bride and the groom, or the groom and the groom, or the bride and the bride, however you're going to do it these days, comes in, and then there's their party as well. That's a procession. But I was kind of surprised that there was another definition. And the other definition was an abstract but perceptible thing that issues or originates from a source, procession. So, what this is really talking about, I think, in the course is kind of giving us two meanings here, I think. One is it is talking about how our thoughts do come to us in a process, and they are, constantly coming to us. But there's also the idea of where are they coming from, right? Where are our thoughts coming from? And of course, we're course students, we're Course in Miracles students, and so we know that our thoughts emanate from spirit and from the ego. And it's our task is to kind of like look at that from a standpoint of, choosing, right? Choosing spirit, choosing love, so on and so forth. But I also wanted to kind of go over, because based on some experience I had, another way of looking at this procession. I did actually change a little bit. Instead of thoughts, I took some liberty and changed my title to Procession of People. And I did this because this is the core teaching of the of A Course in Miracles. Core teaching of the Course in Miracles is that it's our relationships. It's our special relationships that we're working on transforming them into holy relationships through a process from which we heal. And I've had some recent experiences of this, of some pretty long-term healing and miracles that have taken decades. But I've seen some recent shifts. So last week, actually, about a week and a half ago or so, I had 5 friends come into town and visit me. A couple whom I've known for over 50 years, which that means that if you do the math, I'm 59 now. So I was kind of a young boy when I met some of these, used to play with them, play sports, and so on and so forth. Um, they're all from my hometown, which is a town called Maple Shade, New Jersey. I'm not sure if I don't really mention that, but it's a town in South Jersey, southern New Jersey, kind of a suburb of Philadelphia and Camden, New Jersey. And it was very, very interesting visit. And the visit was interesting because I went back last year. I talked a little bit about this in November for a high school reunion. And it just so happened most of the friends that I grew up with in my town, I went to a different high school. I went to a regional Catholic high school. So I did, you know, begin to kind of separate from some of these friends just because of the high schools that we went to different high schools. But they were also holding their high school reunion that same weekend. And it was right across the street from my high school reunion. So I just walked across, well, I drove across the street and I saw all these people that I had grown up with. I mean, and at that time, there was the neighborhood we grew up in. There was hundreds of kids. It was just, it seems like it. There were hundreds of kids. I mean, we would, in summer nights, we would go out and we'd play kick the can and all these other games. And it just seemed like there was just hundreds of us out there doing these games. And so, it was really wonderful and to meet folks and catch up with them it was also there was some kind of sadness because I would ask about their parents and I'm lucky my parents are still alive, but a lot of their parents had passed and things like that. So you just get caught up with things and so on. But anyway, in that meeting, when I met with them, there was this idea. One of them said to me, well, we should come out and visit. And, I didn't say, oh, no, I'm too busy or da, da, da. I said, yeah, come on out. And so five of these of our core group of friends decided to come out. Two married couples and one who is now single, person is single. So they decided to come out and we met a couple times and arranged a visit and so on and so forth. And so it was really great. But it did get me thinking about like the healing process that has gone on with this original core group of friends from my high school. And what I realized is that, it was me who separated from them. And it took the reason that I separated from them was because I was in 1988, 89, I started to come out as a gay man. And I made a conscious decision that I was so like trying to work. There was a lot of, personal issues that I was going through, trying to embrace this new identity after resisting it for many years. And I decided that I had to go and live in that world and kind of let my other world go. And it was kind of a fateful choice. And I don't think it was a loving choice. I think it was a choice from fear. And the Course says this: every system of thought must have a starting point. It begins with either making or creating a difference, which we have already discussed. Now, that last line was talking about a previous sentence, but when we make a decision and we make a decision to separate, I'm not saying necessarily that is a bad or good thing. In this case, though, I recognized upon reflection that my decision was more based on fear. I was more afraid of being judged. I was more afraid of being seen in my new identity, not as like they actually call me Pete. They know, whereas my adult friends call me Peter, and they of course called me Pete. And so it was funny even when they came out and did this, but I did it. The Course says both the separation and fear are miscreations that must be done for the opening of the altar to become to receive atonement. And I talked to you a little bit about this sense of process. So this process of me separating from my friends 35 years ago really began. And I actually saw them about, I moved out here in December of 99. I actually saw them Thanksgiving weekend one last time. And I hadn't seen them much for the 10 years after I came out. But before I moved out to San Francisco, there was a party I went and saw them. And that's the last time I saw most of them, for over that year for 25 years doing that. So, that this kind of process was very interesting. But just like, like when, I mean, I was struck by kind of the congruence, how it was when Bill Thetford says, I'm tired. I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm not going to exactly quote from the preface, but you know how he says, like, I'm tired of the angry and hostile feelings that are taking place in my department. There has to be another way. And Helen Schuckman says there is, and they join to bring the Course in Miracles. And I can't just, like, I just can't help but see this kind of same process with my friends and in my life, that they reached out to me, I accepted, and now this whole process took place. So anyway, they come out, and I can just let you know, we just had a wonderful, wonderful time. I mean, just like everything we planned or didn't plan went amazingly. Give you an example. We were supposed to go to Muir Woods, and I was in charge of Muir Woods, right? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna ride over there and go up and see Muir Woods. So I'm like, I got this like intuition a few minutes beforehand, and before they were coming over here, about an hour, and I looked, and it was like, oh, you need like reservations to park there now, and if you don't have reservations, they're not going to let you park because it got too dangerous. It got too crowded on these windy roads. Muir Woods is this redwood forest that we still have right across in Marin County from San Francisco. Sorry about, I should have said that. Anyway, so I was like, oh, what am I going to do? But then they were like, you can take a shuttle up. So I made reservations for the shuttle, and we got up there, and we met this guy who talked to us. We were going to the wine country the next day, and he gave us ideas. I mean, it was all just like, it was just all, you could see the Holy Spirit's, spirit and hand in kind of everything. And we had a good time. And then we were coming back from Muir Woods. And one of my friends texted me and said, hey, it's happy hour. It was Friday happy hour. We're getting together in the Castro. Do you want to come? So these are all my friends. They don't know much. They didn't know much about the history of the Castro as like the center of one of the gay civil rights movement, or what had happened and all this stuff. And I was a little I said, hey, do you guys want to go to the Castro? I had driven through it for them for happy hour. And they were like, sure, let's go. It just was like, I was like, oh my God, look at this. So we go to the Castro. They meet a lot of my friends, and they're all, I mean, look, it was amazing. Like my friends and they were just like talking and having a good time. My two guy friends, Scott and Gary, they went into the gay bar. They didn't care. You know what I mean? It was just I was just this amazing healing, like these perceptions, and they were just fine with really everything. And then, another thing that happened was later on, they told me they took a trip down the coast to Monterey area, which is about 2 hours south of here. And they listened to one of my talks. They listened to that talk that I gave. Ask not what the Holy Spirit can do for you, but ask what you can do for the Holy Spirit. And they really liked it, and they asked questions. And later on, we met for dinner with some of my other friends, Reverend Tony, Reverend Dusa, Reverend Vincent, some other friends at a local restaurant here, Delancey Street, which does wonderful work with recovering addicts and folks that are, down on their luck in life. And it was, again, there was good energy, and they were interested, and they were asking Reverend Tony questions about it. And Reverend Tony was like, are you interested? Like he even saw that they were interested in the Course in Miracles. And it was incredible healing for me, because it not only just healing in terms of them, in terms of accepting, me seeing that I was kind of the interference of the love there, for a while, but also, that they have evolved as well. That, we all grew up in the same town. Most of us, not everyone, most of us were kind of involved with the Catholic Church then, that we, many of them gone to Catholic grade school, but all of them had some church affiliation. And they were really interested. The ideas of the Course in Miracles didn't scare them, or didn't like shun them away. And so it was really, really, like a healing for me to like see that we have all advanced. Like, this miracle has been ongoing for 30 some years. The process of me really letting go of my fear of how they were going to accept me as a gay man, accept me as this, what's this Course in Miracles, I made sure I told them, when I said, because I kind of said, like at some point I said, I'm a minister. And I said, I study the Course in Miracles. And I said, because typical people move out to California, I said, but it's not a cult. I want to make sure they know that. So it's not a cult. So the Course in Miracles says this: our task is but to continue as fast as possible the necessary process of looking straight at the interference and seeing it exactly as it is. So, what is the interference? What is keeping us from forgiving and really claiming our identity? And of course, it always comes back to fear. It always comes back to really a form of not acceptance. Because as we, kind of go through our lives, we run interference, we block, in, in football. Some of us here are interested in football. There is an offense and a defense. And there are wide receivers. They catch the football from the quarterback. They catch the throw. And there's defensive backs. And defensive backs are supposed to stop the completion of the pass, but they're not supposed to interfere. They're supposed to do it in a, without breaking the rules. Well, our ego breaks the rules, right? Our ego interferes with the thoughts that we have from God. And it puts fear in our path in order to prevent us from embracing that. In the reading that Reverend Elaine did today, it says, "Come unto me, my children, once again, without such twisted thoughts upon your hearts. Dream now of healing, then arise and lay all dreaming down forever." And I think the truth for me, and even when I hear it in my classes for all of us, is that we have all kinds of miracles happening in our lives. Some of them seem to take forever. Some of them are taking 35 years, 40 years. But our job is just to show up. Our job is to say, you know what? I could bemoan the fact that I made it up all in my head. My friends 35 years ago were willing to accept me for who I was. I didn't have to separate from them. But I did, and that's what I did. But I also was willing when Spirit was willing, was when Spirit presented those opportunities to do it. And so it instructs me, and perhaps for you, is to just remember, like, what is the lesson in the present? Well, what am I afraid of today? What are my fears today? And how can I understand that, miracles can happen when we're ready for them? And how can we do this? Well, we can do this by being aware and by being reflective. And it's very clear here that we may be working through various different identities in our life, whether it has to do with our role in life, whether it has to do with our nationality, our ethnicity, our political orientation, all of these things which change and may do different things. But the truth is that our ultimate identity that we will come to realize is that we are divine. That is our nature. That's who we are. We're not separate, but we are divine and we are eternal. And we have those gifts. And as we lay down those dreams, we arise to that reality and that peace and that love that is our inheritance. Those are the gifts from God. And so I hope for you today that as we proceed through our process, that we move closer to our divinity. And that's my talk for today. Thanks, everyone.